The information that we will explain in this video, my dear follower, is one of the most dangerous economic information that we do not learn, neither in schools nor in universities. And the concept that we will explain in this video will teach you how to make your wealth from your current financial income, my friend follower. Explanation of the third lesson from the book Rich Dad and Poor Dad by the very beautiful author Robert Kiyosaki. Your coffee, my follower friend, must be ready. Or your favorite drink. And I want you to enjoy it while watching. Welcome to you, my follower friend, on Rich Books channel. And the idea of the channel is that I read a book and give you its benefits, so if you want to take the benefit of reading without what read, subscribe to the channel. The concepts that I will explain to you now are very important concepts. These concepts will make you see money in a different way. For example, when any amount of money enters your account, it is not just an amount of money that entered and a sum of money that went out. No. The subject has more details. The amount of money that enters your account has a name and a source. When it comes out of your account, it also has a name and a destination. In order to be brief, I will explain to you 4 financial vocabulary. It is very important that you know each one of them and know how to control them. This is the core of the third lesson. Of course, the third lesson is about the sum of the rich buying assets and the poor and middle class people buying liabilities. The second lesson was the sentence the rich don't work for money. Money works for them. The third lesson is that the rich buy assets, and the poor and middle class people buy liabilities. Okay, what is the difference between assets and liabilities? This is exactly what I was talking about, and this is exactly what I'm going to explain. 4 vocabularies, my follower friend. The first 2 items are income and assets. Income, it is any amount of money that enters you.
It is the financial gate for you, i.e., the amount of a salary, a university bonus, profits from a project, dividends, aid, theft, embezzlement, or any income.
This is the income. As for the assets, says Robert Kiyosaki, for the poor and people of the middle class, they are property. Like house, car, farm, mobile, anything you own. This tells you the definition of assets for the poor and the middle class. As for the rich, this talk is different for the rich, and the definition of assets for them is anything that you own and gives you financial income that is considered an asset. Did you realize, my follower friend, that the thing that you own and gives you income is considered an asset? If it does not give you income, then this is not considered an asset. An example of an asset is the existence of shares in the bank, on which dividends are distributed every quarter, and this is considered an asset. Likewise, real estate that you rent out and that brings you money. This is considered an asset and your intellectual property, like the books you write and sell, or the YouTube clips you make and put on YouTube, and they keep making money. These, my dear friend, are simple examples of the assets we are talking about. So the first 2 items are income and assets. Don't forget to focus on the assets, my follower friend. The second elements are expenses and liabilities. As for expenses, they are any amount that enables you to eat, drink, wear clothes, walk, entertain, travel, and others. Are considered expenses. A commitment, my follower friend, is any amount you commit to paying, whether weekly, monthly or annually. What is important is that you are always obligated to pay this amount. Example liabilities, loans, house rent, car amount, PlayStation Plus and Netflix subscription, electricity bills, water bills, house and periodic maintenance, and more. These are the obligations. Well, what is the dangerous secret, my follower friend, in this 4 vocabulary? It is that the poor and people of the middle class deal with this vocabulary differently than the rich, and let me give you the difference between them. First, the poor have income from a salary, donations, or aid, and often the poor have assets that give them income, and often they also have obligations, so they pay for expenses. Middle class people, my follower friend, are not far behind. They have an income. Their income usually comes from a salary. Unfortunately, they also do not have assets that give them financial income, and this income that comes to them from the salary is in line with the obligations and expenses. The poor live on suffocation. The income that comes in goes towards expenses and obligations, and when the end of the month comes, there is often nothing left of that income but crumbs. These are the poor and the middle class. This is the meaning of the first part of the sentence. The third lesson is that the poor and the middle class buy liabilities. As for the rich, they have income like the poor and the middle class, but the serious difference, my follower friend, is that this income comes from assets. They have assets that give them income, and their assets are the first and foremost source of income. He has a salary like you, but he never counts on his salary. This depends on his assets and projects. My follower friend, his monthly income comes from assets from companies, stocks, real estate bonds, from intellectual property. From here comes the income of the rich, my friend, and they also have expenses and they have liabilities, but it is different for the rich. He puts an amount of income into assets and then pays off his liabilities, and what remains of it lives as expenses. The poor and the middle class buy liabilities. Man, once he gets hired and gets paid, he goes to the bank and gets a good loan. Where do you want to go with the loan, honey? He says, buy me a new car. Or buy me a PlayStation 5, or buy me an iPhone, or travel to such and such a country. Or buy me clothes from so-and-so brands. Any amount he enters, he thinks how to spend it along. My dear follower friend, this is real and disturbing. When I read this, I said, by God, it really is. Any amount come to me, I go and buy a watch, or buy a ring or perfume. Let me give you the solution. You can take only 10% of your salary and keep it aside. And you think about the amount, how to invest it, or something to buy and sell. The first time you get financial income, think about how to buy an asset with it. This is the great difference, my dear follower, between the rich and the poor in thinking. Of course, I am one of the people who live in a rented house with my family. My first and greatest goal was always thinking about how to own a house. And I had made up my mind that I would buy the house. Imagine, my follower friend, while I was reading this book, Robert Kiyosaki mentioned a story that happened to him with his wife. He says, I made a deal, and it was great, and I got a great amount of money from it. I said to give my wife a car as a gift that she dreamed of. He says the price of the car was a little high. He says, so I remembered the words of my rich father, who was always present in my mind. Hey, Robert. The poor and the middle class buy liabilities. Including the car, and the rich buy the assets. I said, okay, I will buy her the car, but first with this amount, I will buy an asset that will bring me a sum of money, and from the income that comes to me from this asset, I will collect the money for the second time and buy her the car. He actually says, after 4 years, I collected the amount from this asset and bought her the car. He says the truth is that it was not me who bought the car for her. I bought the asset, and the asset is the one who bought the car for her. He says, and the big difference that has happened is that instead of buying the car for her as soon as I get money, I sit like this without money, and the full amount of this money goes to this car. I bought an asset that I built for 4 years, and then I bought the car for her, and at the same time I have financial income from this asset. The result is instead of not having a car, but she has a car, and I have income. Look at the rich, my friend. What is more surprising than this, my dear follower, is that the house you buy is not considered an asset if you live in it and pay electricity, water and other bills on it, then it is a commitment. And if you are going to rent the house from people and they come to you with money, this is the asset. When I first read this story, it completely changed my thinking. From your current financial income, my dear follower, you can make the difference if you think about how to buy assets. You need to get tired and keep going no matter what. We all suffer, not just you. But some people give in to commitments and don't try to change their situation. And it begins with the thinking of the poor mind. No, I can't. No, where do I get the money from? My company does not give me a salary. I don't have a job. The same thing we said in the first section. We waste our time blaming circumstances instead of investing our time thinking about how we can change our financial situation. And the second text of people thinks how to change his circumstances. He thinks how to change his situation and tries once, twice, 3 or 4 times. Like Denzel Washington says, if you fall 7 times, stand up 8. Try until you succeed. And we all know that this is true. And there are people who tried, until they succeeded. Thomas Edison tried 1,000 times on this light bulb. Today, by the grace of God, you are using the mobile phone and using the lights, and you are watching the speech from this screen and walking in paved and lit roads. Thanks be to God, then to Thomas Edison, and he returns to his attempts. Because he didn't give up until he succeeded and lit the light bulb. So the second lesson, my dear follower, the poor and middle class people buy commitments. The first thing about his income is he thinks about how to buy things, expenses, commitments, clothes, and so on. The rich buy assets. The first thing he thinks about is how to put money into his assets and develop and grow them. Even if we assume, for the sake of argument, that your salary will actually go 100% on expenses and obligations, and there will be nothing left of it, not even the price of coffee, cinema, or a subscription to Netflix, views, and so on. Find a way to increase your income. Search by and you will find. There are millions of ways to get money and build projects without even capital. The most important thing, my dear follower friend, is not to blame yourself on your luck and circumstances. And blame the people, blame the obligations, the job, the salary, and blame your family that has no income. Grow your assets and make your main source of income, and most importantly, your projects and assets. And in a very beautiful saying said by Robert Kiyosaki, he says every dollar is in your assets, an employee works for you, and money works for. This is the core of the third lesson, my dear follower. If you benefit from this lesson, I hope you publish it and send it to anyone who can benefit from it. You may be the reason for changing his life. And if you like this video, my dear follower, I wish you would be kind and give us a like. And as I told you, if you want to take the benefit of reading without what read, you can subscribe to the channel. The fun is over for today, my dear follower. Until I meet you next week, God willing, with a more beautiful and better dose. Thanks for listening, my follower friend, and thanks for your invaluable time. Goodbye.